Out there, floating quietly between Earth and Mars, is a rock older than the planet we stand on. Its name is Bennu, an asteroid so ancient, so untouched, that it may hold clues to life itself. Bennu isn't just any rock. It's a time capsule, a fragment of our solar system's raw beginnings, forged more than 4.5 billion years ago from the cosmic dust that birthed the Sun, the Earth, and maybe something else. In 2018, NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission arrived at Bennu. It mapped every hill, every boulder, every crater. And in 2023, a sample of Bennu's surface, unchanged for eons, was brought back to Earth. What scientists found inside that sample sparked headlines and imagination. Carbon, water-bearing clay, even complex organic compounds. These aren't signs of life, but they are the stuff that life comes from. Some believe asteroids like Bennu helped seed Earth with the chemistry needed for life, crashing into our young planet and delivering molecules that would eventually evolve into cells, brains, and consciousness. And that's where it gets weird. Some thinkers, scientists, philosophers, even quantum theorists have asked, what if consciousness didn't begin with life? What if the potential for awareness was already encoded in the very dust of space? This idea, that consciousness might emerge from the cosmos itself, isn't proven. It's not even accepted by most scientists. But it raises a strange, beautiful possibility, that awareness might not be a glitch in biology, but a feature of the universe. Let's be clear. There is no evidence that Bennu holds a soul, a mind, or a whisper of ancient memory. What we do know is this: it holds carbon, water, and time itself. Bennu reminds us that life, whatever it is, wherever it came from, might be more widespread than we thought, and that asking big questions about origins, minds, and meaning is part of what makes us human. In the end, maybe Bennu is just a rock, but maybe it's the oldest storyteller we've ever met.
The truth is out there, and it begins with you. Welcome to the Cosmic Fold, where we talk high strangeness. Call us at 928-288-2942. That's 928-288-2942. Or join us by video. If you're at a computer, just look for the link in the chat. Buckle up, sit around our virtual campfire, and let's get started.
Whoops! Before we begin our regular podcast, let's rewind to our April 30 episode about time loops and strange sounds, and then give you a crazy update.
This is the one that fascinates me. It's a mysterious Russian shortwave tone with coded message in it, and it's been going since the 1970s.
Really?
And no one knows where it's coming from, and it's still going.
What's the message?
They don't know. It's coded.
Well, it says a buzzing sound lasts 1.2 seconds, pausing, and then 1.13 seconds, and repeating 21 to 34 times a minute.
And where is it being heard? Like, how can you hear
it's
it?
coming out of Russia. They know that.
It's coming out of Russia, but where could you hear it? Like, could you hear it through your radio? Do you hear it in the air?
Let's see.
The military is hearing it, isn't it? I didn't look it up that much. I'm going to probably do a video on it.
I'm not sure if it's it says a buzzing sound. I don't know what it is. I really don't know.
Mystery is deepening over one of the strangest and most unnerving broadcasts in the modern world. It's known as the buzzer, and it's back. For decades, this Soviet-era shortwave signal, officially UVB-76, has sent out a hypnotic 24-hour buzz on 4625 kilohertz. But now, the buzzing has been interrupted, again. On April 15th, 2025, the buzzer transmitted 4 strange words: Neptune, thymus, foxcloak, new taboo. 4 cryptic signals in just 24 hours, an extremely rare occurrence, immediately picked up by UVB-76 monitoring channels on Telegram. Once used by the KGB during the Cold War, UVB-76 is believed to carry secret Russian military messages, possibly as part of a dead man's switch, a nuclear protocol that stays armed unless told otherwise. And this isn't the first time. In February 2025, the buzzer erupted with 25 messages in a single day, with equally bizarre words like optoshum, Elec base, and volcocron. According to Professor David Stupples, a leading expert in electronic warfare, the buzzer's high-frequency signal bounces across the ionosphere, reaching every corner of Russia, even in the event of satellite failure or nuclear catastrophe. He says, quote, "The only way to make certain the band is available is to keep broadcasting on it. They are reserving this channel for emergencies. But this latest message feels different. These words don't sound like traditional military code. Some believe they're biological. Neptune, thymus, foxcloak, new taboo. No context, no follow-up, just silence and speculation. We had AI look at each word. Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, or a distant, icy planet. But in military language, Neptune may point to naval operations or oceanic deployments. It could also symbolize depth, the hidden, the subconscious, the abyss, thymus, an actual human organ hidden behind your sternum. The thymus is where T cells are trained, your body's biological soldiers. It's central to immune defense. Why would a Cold War radio signal reference the immune system? Foxcloak, not a real word, but easy to decode. Fox suggests cunning. Cloak suggests stealth. Together, an agent in hiding, a covert operation, or perhaps a stealth mechanism within a biological system. New taboo, a strange one, but look closer. New might refer to nootropics, the mind-enhancing compounds, and taboo, as in taboo, something forbidden. New taboo could hint at an unauthorized mental manipulation protocol or a neurocognitive interference system. Let's have artificial intelligence connect the dots. What if these weren't random code words but phases of a covert system? Neptune, the origin point, something deployed from the sea or a deep tech lab. Thymus, an immune trigger, or a biological key. Foxcloak, a stealth agent, something designed to hide in plain sight. New taboo, the final stage, cognitive shift, mind control, thought suppression, or enhancement. This isn't just Cold War paranoia. The technologies for AI-assisted viral design, gene editing, and neurological interference already exist. Could the buzzer be signaling a live deployment? We've seen this playbook before. The CIA's MKUltra program used drugs, hypnosis, and unknowing civilians to test control techniques. The Soviets experimented with psychotronic weapons, ways to influence thought and perception at a distance. Now, in 2025, with everything from brain-computer interfaces to synthetic biology becoming reality, what if the buzzer is more than a relic? What if it's still in use, and its messages are still meant for someone? 4 words, no explanation, no repetition, just a whisper in the ionosphere. Neptune, thymus, foxcloak, new taboo. Was it a signal to activate? A test? Or something else entirely? A quiet warning from a Cold War machine that never turned off? The buzzer is still broadcasting, and it just spoke again. Stay alert, stay curious. And remember, this is AI speculation about an actual code reported by The Sun and other less mainstream newspapers.
That is weird.
I'm activated.
Yeah, that
What are you
kind of gave me the
listening of?
chills. That was creepy.
That was
Neptune,
scary.
I think of, but yeah, it was really. I was thinking Neptune is like, besides it being of the sea, you know, Neptune is still in Pisces, which in astrology, there's a lot of confusion. Neptune is also kind of confusing. It means sort of like Neptunian, like you don't know, you know, what's going on kind of thing. You're confused. So it kind of made me wonder. I looked up that other word, notubo. Is that, how did you spell that one?
They spelled it
N-O-O.
T-A or T-O-B-O-O or something. Natubo.
Nootabu.
That's what I thought. I spelled it that way, and I got, it refers to Oda Nobutada, a prominent figure in the Sengoku period of Japan. Was the eldest son of the powerful Daimyo Oda, blah, 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 I can't read, you know, a skilled samurai who fought in numerous battles. He served under his father and commanded his own armies, notably in conflicts against whatever, I can't read those, you know, clans names. He was killed during the Hino incident in 1582. So that's a person. That's like a samurai.
Kind
name.
of a war thing.
Warrior. You know, it kind of reminds me of this thing that it kind of creeps me out because fox cloak. Now, I think of Trump as being a fox. Like, because when Trump came to power, there was, right before he came in, there were all of these, all foxes were like a really big thing. They were everywhere. There was that song on YouTube that my kid was fascinated by, and a lot of kids would sing. And it was like this, what does the fox say? Then, you know, all that. Remember that song? It was like right before Trump became president. And there was all this fox lore kind of coming up out of nowhere. Foxes are tricksters, right? So fox cloak sounds like to me. Okay, so you want my total crazy interpretation of this?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, just so people don't think I'm nuts for putting this up, I put links in the show description on YouTube so you can actually read the articles yourself. So we're not making this up. Okay, go ahead, Denise. Sorry for that, but
okay. So I had last time I did a meditation. I have a group of psychics that I training, but they already they know how to. It's not like I'm doing anything. I'm just doing meditations with them and kind of guiding them through these things. So the last time we did like a reconnaissance of the future. I focus a lot on Europe, and one of the things I got that was going to happen. And this is really creepy. I hate to say this, actually. I'm going to say it here because not that many. It's not like I'm putting it on my Substack where a lot of people might read this.
right.
But what I got was an alliance between, a couple of things. I believe that Trump, obviously, and I'm not the only one. This is kind of documented. But he's in cahoots with Putin, right? He is clearly. Yeah, he's obviously clearly connected to this. And there is Fox Cloak, I think, might be a reference to he's the cover for the real thing that they want to do. Okay. So Fox Cloak is get this crazy dipshit excuse my language, in office, who's a trickster, who's going to, he's creating all this chaos. People are looking everywhere. And they are actually creating this scenario, which was the second piece I got most recently, which was very, very fucking scary. And I don't even know if I should say it because it's so scary.
Oh, now you have to.
Well, I had something. The whole reason I even noticed this thing was, although I have been noticing whatever we play on these opening videos and stuff, I'm picking up on something, just like that one planet and we discovered life on there. So all of these, we talk about them, watch them manifest within a month. And so it was just so strange. You know how sometimes you're like just about to fall asleep and you don't know if it was a dream or if you actually heard something. Mm-hmm. And I was just exhausted and I didn't turn the TV off and I thought I watched a YouTube video. Yeah. But now I'm like, was it a dream? Because in the YouTube video, there was this lady and she had this Christian, it was a Christian prophet, definitely from the Christian realm. And he only put out just a couple things a year. That's it. He doesn't like get into prophecy or, spreading it like, some people do. And he was warning about a very severe biologically warfare virus coming out of Europe. And he said that this thing is going to be like, do you think COVID was bad? This thing is going to be horrible. And what he was describing. And so this young girl in this YouTube that I was watching saying, you know, I took this seriously because she's a very devout Christian.
Right.
And she said all of a sudden he popped up again and he gave a second warning to be prepared for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to find that YouTube, you know, because I couldn't remember if it, yeah, and I couldn't find it. And so I ended up at this about this buzzer going off again. So I don't know if I was dreaming about this Christian or not.
Right.
It was a message.
And so, yeah. So maybe I saw it, maybe I didn't. I have no idea. But then this thing comes up, and of all things, you know, here this thing has been just buzzing since the 70s, and all of a sudden there's words coming out.
Yeah, that's
got to be a code for something.
Oh, it is. I think so. This is what I think maybe. So in the visions that I got in the meditation, there was this huge cloud over Europe. It was this big white cloud. It was, I didn't know what it was, but there definitely, you know, I don't know if it was nuclear fallout or if it was some kind of, but it was definitely not right.
Were there changes of yellow to it?
It was
in my dream, the Christian prophet said that it's got like a yellowish dust in this cloud.
Huh.
So
it was just dust cloud. It was a big white dust cloud. That's all I could tell. And it was over Europe. I couldn't tell if it was like a nuclear fallout or if it was a volcano or what. I couldn't tell what it was. All I knew was that it was this big cloud. And it was in relationship. Then the other thing that I saw was, this is the really scary part, was basically that was connected to Russia and war. And basically them getting together in allyship with China and North Korea and pushing through Europe to try to take control of Europe. And that was really scary. And it was just like them coming on and on, like there was no way to fight it. It was just like, they had millions of soldiers and and so it was like really terrifying.
I got, my internet boosted me, so I didn't. I'm sorry, my internet knocked me out, so we stopped at the cloud. I didn't hear what else you said.
I said, so the other part of it was that Russia was allied with China, and I think North Korea. They just were Asian soldiers, but I know it was China. And they were trying to take over Europe, basically. They were coming. So his plan of reconstituting the Russian Empire was in combination with China. And basically he had their might behind him. And there was just no way to fight it. And another thing I got like a year ago in a meditation was civil war here. And then an attack from Russia to the United States, a missile attack. And I was like, why would they do that? Like, that doesn't make no sense to me. Like, why would they do that? And now it kind of makes sense. If he is really trying to take over the world, Putin, with Xi, then why wouldn't they? I mean, eventually Trump is just kind of a manipulation to get people here to stay out of business there. And then once they get that, then they're going to, you know what I mean? If they're trying to control, you know, the world, which seems insane to me. I don't understand why anybody would do that, but Hitler tried that same thing, you know?
It seems not logical, but of course that's what is going on.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's psycho. It's really psycho.
They're not normal, but
no, they're not.
To me, it seems like Trump has always felt that way. I have always felt that he was the tool, the distraction, the manipulation. Yeah,
he's a distraction.
The smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Do as much damage as he can, but hide what's really going on behind the scenes.
Right. But I think he may be even on a other level, like he's also being used. He maybe doesn't even know it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, but I just figured he was being used so that, you know, Putin could kind of reconstitute his vision of being the Russian Empire again. I never thought of China being like in cahoots with Russia and maybe trying to take over everything. I never thought of that like as being a reality until I saw that. And the weird dust cloud over Europe had something to do with some kind of a weapon. It seemed like to me, but I just didn't know what kind. And I wasn't the only one that saw it. This time I saw it a bunch, but a year before, some people saw it in their a variation of that same theme. We also have a missile attack. Almost all the psychics in the group.
And that cloud, whether it was a dream or a YouTube video, if I can find wherever this was, he was describing it as, whatever is in this, it creates this airborne illness that's just impossible to control.
Wow.
And how it really starts spreading everywhere. I mean, I don't want to be gloom and doomy or whatever, but this, when these messages come in this way, it's worth paying attention to them.
Yeah, I agree. But how would it?
Well, you said something about preparing.
Yeah, how would you prepare for it? And also, how would they control it for themselves getting sick? You know what I'm saying?
This Christian, at least in this dream, if I can at least find this, was saying, be right in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
People who are meant to stay will stay.
Right.
And will have like gifts of healing, like hands-on healing, and to help. And and if not, maybe just be right in your soul, because what he was talking about was really horrible. I mean, I don't want to get into how bad it was, but it was really bad.
Well, I actually think that that's what we've been going through now for a while, in the sense of time to get right with your soul. I think more people are becoming more introspective. The time was given to us in a strange way to be introspective. That's what we're supposed to be focusing on. There is no possible way beyond the obvious of voting and protesting that any of us really will have a larger effect on the greater political situation.
Right.
We have to work on our internal situation, and try to share that with the people around us. That is the only thing we can do. And the message here is, you're not your body.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reason I brought that the beginning thing, I wasn't even going to go to this. I was just trying to find about that thing while I worked on the show program tonight. And but about that asteroid, the show last week, just when Denise and I and Laura were going on, it was like this thing flashed on the phone and in my news feed about how they thought they found consciousness on an asteroid. I'm like, oh my God, but it had like this huge paywall. It's like, well, I'm not going to read that. So I looked it up, and I think that, these science magazines and stuff are clickbaiting people just to,
Right.
But it is interesting when you think about 4.5 billion years old, and our consciousness soul is not a biological thing, but what seeds that, you think even out here where there's a huge meteor crater where a giant meteor hit, and it destroyed all the dinosaurs and everything else. But what other life forms did that then create with whatever it brought? And that form of consciousness. I mean, I don't know how you link the consciousness to it, but it's linked somehow, just in whatever matter it is.
I mean, in metaphysical ideas or animistic religions, all things have consciousness. All matter is conscious on some level,
Right.
So, I mean, if it's existing, a tree has consciousness, grass has consciousness, we have consciousness, the sky, even the wind has consciousness, or the fire has consciousness. So the sun and the stars and the moon have consciousness of some kind. But I mean, if I think there's probably truth to that. I think it's probably accurate. It's just we don't understand those other consciousnesses because they're so far removed from us. And the multiverse has many, many dimensions, many, many frequencies. Then that would explain why we get weird paranormal sort of as maybe different dimensions collapse or things interact. It would make sense. It's kind of a natural thing, not supernatural, but natural, and maybe some people are more prone to it because maybe something about their frequency kind of collapses other realities into this one or something. I don't know. But I think, I think all things are everything in the universe is conscious. Even, I mean, some people, I just watched a thing about my daughter watched this documentary about this doll called Robert the doll. Have you heard of this?
Oh, very much. And it ties right into our conversation tonight. Yes, definitely.
It's so weird. It's the weirdest story. Like, so, this doll that this kid gets, he becomes super fascinated with it. And it's like this extremely haunted doll. Like Annabelle is nothing by comparison to this thing. It's really insane. All the stories that thousands and thousands of people having experiences of like weird paranormal things, not good, by the way, as a result of encountering this doll. And the story about the woman who, maybe did some spell on it on top of whatever weird thing was going on with the doll already. And the fact that the doll it moves around, people report it moving around and doing, all these weird paranormal things associated with it. And it's not like one person. It's like thousands of people who write letters to the doll because they don't follow the protocol in the museum. And then all of a sudden, all these things go crazy in their life.
That ties into a tulpa, which we're going to talk about tonight.
All right. Well, okay. Yeah, that's weird that I happened to watch that yesterday. Yeah.
Well, as far as consciousness goes, the Hermetic, the ancient, what are they called? Like the occulted ancient understanding of the Hermeticists was that we live in consciousness. We're part of the consciousness we live in. Our bodies are just our tool to interact with it. And so there is consciousness in everything and everywhere coming from the source. And our purpose is to experience the three-dimensional world and each other and take what we learn back to the source. That's what they do. So,
yeah. And I think it basically is the same thing as what animistic religions believe.
Plasma physicists, quantum physicists also believe that.
Not all of them.
No,
not all of them.
But a lot of them believe that.
Before we jump into it, before we get into the tulpas, Bo, did you see the Pillar of Light?
No. What Pillar of Light? What are you talking about?
All right.
This one?
This light showed up like very intense throughout the four corner states. People could see this.
Wow.
It was here in the White Mountains. It was all over Arizona. It was in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, went up to Wyoming. There was a sighting of it in Kansas and all the way up to Canada. And so it's like this big mystery. And so Justine, remember, she's been on the show, came in today. She goes, I've been meaning to ask you, did you see the pillar? And I said, no, because it was like 10 o'clock our time. And I'm usually getting ready for bed or sitting here working on the computer at 10.
Right.
And, so I didn't see it. And I wish I had. But her husband was out with the dogs. And this made me think of you, Denise, because
it says the black line. Yeah, it's like the black line reverse of what I saw. Yeah.
So Matt's what Matt told Justine, he's like, you've got to come out and see this. It's like the universe is ripping apart. Is how he described it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how you kind of did. And so what they saw was it went up from the ground like up. And then he said it was the orbs were like, there were a bunch of orbs too, and he could see them all like it was in the same like location as where the orbs are. And it lasted like 10 or 15 minutes before it finally faded.
Wow.
And there is just tons and tons and tons of things on Facebook. That's how I saw it. It was just like everywhere, enough that our biggest newspaper had to report on it. And so, trying to find explanations, there's like three things. They say it's like space.com says it's a Chinese rocket launch. And this was the stuff expelling from it because, so if you go to space.com, they like track, it does kind of match the where that Chinese rocket was, but it's kind of weird that you'd see a Chinese rocket launch out here.
Yeah, that is weird. That seems strange.
Then the other theory is that it's something called Steve, which is, it just has to do with geomagnetic storms. But again, it's like, why would there be a singular?
Yeah, that doesn't
pillar?
make sense either.
And what they call the pillars of light, generally you're going to see several of them, not just one like that. But what those are, it's like ice in the atmosphere. But the only thing that everybody seems to have agreed on is that night, it was Friday night, 10 o'clock our time, so it'd be like midnight your time, I think. And Helen, are you on Pacific time? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have been 10 your time too. There was like a freak geomagnetic storm that nobody was expecting. And so space.com was saying, well, that is probably what made this, stuff from the rocket show like that. But I tell you what, it really shook people up. And even on the Reddit astronomy thing, there were people saying, oh, well, you can see these coordinates. It's definitely a Chinese rocket. And other people who actually witnessed it, it's like, that's fine, dude. But if you saw this the way we saw it, it was just kind of mind blowing and scared some people or created hope or whatever. But it just seems like it's kind of typical for all of this stuff we have been experiencing, like the end of 2024, moving into 2025, whether it's drones or people seeing sightings or like these orb things or ships or pillars of light. There's something going on. I don't know what it is, but more and more people are becoming aware of it.
Well,
can I say something about what you said, Denise, about your dream about the cloud? When you were talking about it, it triggered a memory for me. I have read multiple places, multiple times, and don't ask me to cite where because I can't remember. Throughout history, narration about some UFO type thing, an apparition, a manifestation, sometimes an actual UFO that sprays a cloud across a countryside, and then there is an illness. This is a repeated theme in history, over and not history in, well, I guess
myth.
Over and over again. Yeah. It can actually be connected to true outbreaks. I mean,
interesting.
There was an outbreak. Which came first, the outbreak or the story?
Right. Interesting. Huh.
So, did you see that, Helen? That light?
No, I don't look outside very often. I can hardly see across the room. My poor husband trying to get me to see, he's all into looking at the stars, and I'm like, where's the sky?
Do you wear glasses?
Pardon?
Do you wear glasses normally?
Yeah.
About reading glasses, but regular glasses.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I wear them when I'm driving or when I'm watching a movie.
Right.
And then I wear these when I'm reading, but when I'm just talking, I don't
need some bifocals.
I know what you look like, It's all right. No, I don't like bifocals. I find they make me dizzy. They're weird.
Oh well, you need a good one.
Well, now they merge in because I've got.
Yeah, and I have them. I'm totally.
I don't like them. I had the kind of gradually.
Yeah, that's the kind.
Yeah, you can't even tell with how they are.
Yeah, I have them. This is a bifocal, but whatever they call that, a progressive bifocal or whatever.
Progressive, that's the name of it.
Yeah.
They're too liberal for me. I don't.
I can't see up close at all, so I have to wear them.
Oh, that's interesting. It's going to get worse as you get older. I promise.
Oh, it already has. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So Denise brought up this thing about Robert the Doll, and that ties perfectly into the little PowerPoint I put together, because we were talking last week or maybe the week before about why are there these ghosts that like hang out for like 100 years? Should we resolve your issues by then? And I kind of then again And I've kind of speculated it's like people sort of are thinking these things into being. you know, with the expectation, and you go to like these haunted houses. And I was thinking about the people that were on the show with us, the Arizona ghost people, and how it's like whenever they go to like this same place and globe, they keep getting manifestations. So if you continue to expect that, are we somehow creating that? And then they also go to this place in Oracle, which, by the way, is on fire right now. I mean, I'm telling you, I had 2 nosebleeds today. So there are,
Oh my God.
it's not, I mean, it was a miracle what they did out here. Because 40, 50 mile an hour wind gusts and got that fire. It's like 90% contained. So when we were talking, I think it was 6,000 acres last show.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like just shy of 21,000 acres right now. But what happened, all this weird sound started coming through when we were trying to do the show.
Yes.
Well, so that night I watched they were live streaming on YouTube and the news stuff, kind of a report from all the officials about what's going on with the fire and who's being evacuated and whatever. And it did the same thing on that. They had to just cut it off. You couldn't even understand what anyone was saying.
Okay, so it was a local thing. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think I probably all of that wind and
the fires,
probably stress on the system from the fires. But so
Tulpas goes to the mind.
So anyway, this has been always kind of been in the back. I don't know that much about tulpas, but I've heard of them more from the Buddhist sort of reading I've done. But what they are, they're consciously created thought forms, and they take on their own apparent autonomy.
Like it's like a poltergeist. That's the same idea as a poltergeist.
And they supposedly can think independently and even communicate. And I honestly think that's what's going on with that doll Robert, because wasn't that kid, the boy that had the doll Robert, was he, I keep hearing an echo. Does somebody have something playing here, or is it coming from me?
I hear the echo. I don't have anything on.
I have a fan on, but I'll turn it off.
No, I don't think it's your fan. I think it's coming from you, Deborah.
All right. I don't know why.
Oh, it's better.
Well, maybe because you're doing this.
Oh, it's better. Yeah, I don't hear it now. It was coming from both. Something was on there.
Sorry.
Okay.
Peace on earth. Hi. Peace on earth to you. Hello.
Peace on earth to you too.
But okay, do you remember, Denise, because you just saw it, Robert the doll in the documentary? Was the little boy that was given that doll, was there something wrong with him, or was he abused or something, or was he sick?
No, he was not. He actually lived to be into the doll was from 1904, and I think he got married in 1930 and died in 1974. So he lived a long life, but he left the doll when he went away to Paris, and he met his wife, and then he moved back with her when his parents died, and then the doll came back into his life. But he did kind of, the way they talked about it in the documentary, he kind of took to the doll and like didn't play with anything else and completely became absorbed in the doll and like gave it his first name. And Gene was his second name, but then he made everyone call him Gene because he wanted the doll to have the name Robert. But the thing that was interesting, they had a medium who said something I thought was probably accurate about what was going on with the doll. She picked up that, that there had been, I guess his father had an affair with one of the women that was like a servant, and she had a miscarriage. And she was also like from Barbados or something. So she was a voodoo practitioner. And she felt like what happened with the doll was already there. The kid was already obsessed with it. It was already kind of a weird doll. But then she used that doll to kind of put a curse on the family. She felt like whatever had happened, that the curse had kind of opened up like a vortex and spirits were attracted to it. So she felt like it wasn't just one spirit. It was like he created almost like a portal where things were constantly kind of different ones, and that there was one that was specifically attached to it more often than not that was negative, but that there were different ones kind of just coming through that portal, and different spirits kind of coming and going through that portal. And that's why it was the way that it was, because of the voodoo thing that the lady did. So that's
and the kids and the child's intense energy. That's what I was trying to remember. Being projected into this, and kids have really strong psychic energy anyway,
they do.
So you're pouring that into it. I'm still hearing something, and I don't.
Yeah, I think it's coming from you. Yeah,
but I'm hearing a man talk in the background. I don't have anyone here, so
I don't hear a man.
I did.
Yeah,
you did?
I don't know where it's coming from. Bove, I'm going to mute you for a second in case it's there. Okay, so. So in Tibetan mysticism, that's where I heard about these before. That cut down. Bove, I muted you. I'm sorry. That's where it was coming, at least for me.
That's my kid, I think, in the other room talking really loud. I think she's talking to my husband. That's probably what you're hearing, her getting mad. Anyway, yeah. I'll mute myself if she starts doing it again. Yeah.
They reported about this tulpa that became autonomous. It actually came up in the book about the Mothman prophecy too, where they were talking because they saw, this supposed haunting that looked like somebody, and he was like, well, that's a tulpa. And where I heard about it in Buddhism is that it was almost like a test that you would meditate and pour your energy into like an object, like a being. And it would then like take on an energy. So of course I was like into that when I was younger. So I had this thing, and I was doing decrees and meditation and all of this stuff with this like angel presence that I had a picture on the wall of. And it got to the point, if people came over, they were afraid of it because its eyes started moving, and it scared me so bad that I thought, oh, I better not do this. And so, but where I got that from was from the Buddhist thing, was that was part of their, kind of like a testing sort of thing that they would do. And, and within Buddhism, they're going to be way more careful and better than a 19-year-old kid like me, or this culture that seems to be popping up about it now. So,
interesting.
What's going on right now, there are online communities on Reddit and so forth that they're all into this like tulpa creation. Bove, if you want to say something, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And okay. And so this Reddit tulpa community was interesting. I didn't have a lot of time, some of it wasn't really where I'm at mentally right now. But it's interesting if it's something that you're interested in learning more about. But there are like whole communities that like are visualizing and working on trying to create these tulpas, that whether it's companionship or whatever. And which I had no idea any of this was going on. The difference between tulpas and ghosts are, they say that tulpas, they're created by the living. So like you said, Denise, a poltergeist, but I also think it could be dolls like Robert or any of these kind of haunted objects. And ghosts are traditionally spirits of the dead. And if it's a spirit of the dead, I think that's when you can help assist them to go to another place. But if it's a tulpa or poltergeist, why would they leave? Where would they go to?
Yeah, they wouldn't leave. They would stay in the environment. They get attached to the object. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would people do
or the
this?
house?
To me, this feels like you're 12 years old and you've decided you're going to drive the car. You have a vague notion of what it is you should be doing, but you don't have the skills or the maturity. We spiritually do not have the skills and maturity to toy with these kind of things. We're supposed to be focusing on being kind to each other, not creating new entities. It's crazy.
But as young people, it's boring. I know when I read, the Buddhism thing, I really thought I was like training my soul for something.
Right, right.
You know, so it wasn't done with bad intent. And the
Yeah.
decrees I was doing was on world healing. That's really what that was my thing.
Right.
And, you know, but even that created this intense energy. Now you have these young kids now, younger people are lonely.
Yeah.
And part of like with movies and everything looks easy and whatever. So you see this like in the manifesting kind of whatever tulpas,
Yes.
which I didn't even know that was like this big thing.
That makes
Ghosts,
sense.
you know, people are looking for a thrill
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, to be loving and whatever is boring.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm boring. I don't want a thrill.
Well, I don't want them running around here either. But so if you think about it, when they're younger, they're interested in doing that kind of stuff. But I think some of it backfires sometimes,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
if you have a poltergeist or, you know, people
No,
getting into
poltergeist
black
is this. It's a
magic.
little bit different than tulpas because poltergeist is not a purposeful
It's your
tulpa.
own energy kind
It's
of.
kind of an
nature and
unconscious
stuff.
tulpa that usually
Yeah.
manifests it from a young person because they're stressed out or they're angry or there's something going on in the home that is not good, and they repress it and they keep, but they're feeding it with their energy, their anger,
Spiraling
their
around
sadness,
them. Yeah.
and it gets projected outward and
Yeah.
gets a life of its own. So that's a poltergeist. It's not done on purpose. A tulpa, though, and I think this, you know, this is a thing about hauntings a lot. Like I had a friend who who had a house that she had some weird activity in. I came to her house, and I was like, this is the area it's coming from. I think it's caused from the people that were fighting in this house and got divorced. There was really a lot of arguing and pain, and it created a negative. It kind of wore into this energy and created like an energy of anger and fighting, and it has a life of its own kind of thing. And I don't know how to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Because it's not like a ghost, right? Oh, great. So that's my daughter. So that's
Not your fault, Bove. It's her kid.
that's my kid freaking out. Yeah. So anyway, so I went over there and I tried to do some, you know, cleansing and tried to help her, and it made it better for a little while. But then hold on one second.
Wouldn't you love to know what she's saying?
Okay. So I told her to stop yelling. So anyway, you know, it helped and everything, but you know, there was all kinds of stuff happening. It kind of came back because that's what happens with these things. So she got someone else who was like an energy worker to work on it, and that helped for a little while, and then it came back. Anyway, she did some research on the house because I told her it's a divorce energy. Ironically, she's in the process of getting divorced now. The first couple that lived there, they got divorced. The second couple that lived there turned out they got divorced. She's been living there. Now she's getting divorced. There's something in the energy, whoever was there in the intensity of their divorce and anger at each other, it's contagious. It's like a worn into the energy of that house.
Yeah.
And that's what was being disruptive. But it's a kind of a tulpa. It's not on purpose or kind of some kind of poltergeist. It's not a fully formed poltergeist, but it's still kind of, it's there. You know what I mean?
Takes
it has
on
its
a
own
life of
intelligence.
its own, right?
Mhm.
Let me tell
It
you a
does.
little story. We moved into a house when I was about 9, and I heard a little later that the people previous to us, the residents, had gotten divorced, and it was an ugly divorce. We lived there for probably about 5 years, and my family manifested so many problems. I can't even tell you, that lasted even until today. Just remarkably toxic things. We moved out, and the family that moved in had 2 small children, a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. Shortly after they moved in, they were killed in a car
Oh
wreck.
no. Oh my God.
And then they, you know, the parents moved out, somebody else moved in, they got divorced. And my best friend lived up the street, and her mother told me, you know, the history later. And she said there's something really wrong with that house. You would never
Right.
know it. It's just a nice middle-class suburban house.
Right.
Nothing remarkable about it. But I always felt creeped out, and I always smelled something in that house, and I cannot describe to you what I smelled. It wasn't sulfur, it wasn't anything
Right.
rotten, it was just odd. And I'd say to people, do you smell that? And they'd look at me like, family members, like I was just, crazy. And I wonder now, in retrospect, what was that all about?
It was obviously some manifestation of whatever it
so.
was.
Yeah, I think so.
And the thing is, then these things intensify as more people experience it, and then feed it.
Feeds on it, yeah.
And so it snowballs, and it just keeps on.
It gets getting bigger and bigger and more intense. Right.
And and that it throws me back into this whole question of consciousness. Okay, so if these things have I don't know if they're self-aware or some seem to have some kind of intelligence or
they do. They have some kind of consciousness, like a really remedial kind of consciousness.
So, but they don't have a soul. That's why I think the consciousness and soul are probably two different things.
But it's an interesting question. How does an energy being kind of take on a life of its own and have a consciousness? But it's not. It's kind of like, in Jewish lore, there's a thing called a golem. Have you heard of the golem? It's kind of like that a little bit. I don't know. They're all kind of different versions of the same idea, where it's a created kind of
like an animated creature, but it's soulless.
Yeah,
it's empty.
It's soulless. Yeah,
like Stephen Miller.
What are those? You might know what they are, Denise, because the name escapes me right now. I was thinking about writing a short story about it. Those boxes, the Jewish boxes. What are those called?
I can't think of it right now. No, they put them on the outside of the house. You're talking about those ones?
Oh,
no, they're
the blessings.
They're boxed. No, and during the Holocaust, they would put evil spirits and
I don't know that,
in those boxes. And so anyway, about 2 or 3 years ago, it was this huge thing in the YouTube and Reddit communities where people were buying these boxes because they would find them, because this one guy bought an old Jewish wine box or something, and then he found one of those boxes in there. And sometimes it would have pieces of, I don't know anything about witchcraft or anything, but it would have pieces of somebody's shirt or hair,
right,
and other objects in there. And then they would seal these with wax, and you're never supposed to open it. So this guy bought
binding, probably kind of binding.
Yeah, it's some kind of a binding thing of these bad spirits. And so anyway, this guy bought I think it was a wine box or something for his mother, for Mother's Day, because he loved antique furniture and stuff. And there was one of Dybbuk box. I think they're called Dybbuks.
Okay.
So there was one in this wine box, and he didn't know what it was, and he broke the seal, and then all hell breaks out in their home.
Wow.
And so anyway, I don't know if people are doing this stuff now, but I mean, they were even finding them and selling them on eBay. So you've got all these people running around, young people, to make a fun YouTube video with these boxes and breaking them open. Now, some of it, I'm sure, was staged, but I think that there are some, just fake, just for clicks. But like the guy with the wine box for his mom, that was not faked. And I think some of these are real. And so that in itself, it's so what they did in the Jewish faith was bind these negative energies and put it in these boxes and seal it.
Right.
And you're just not supposed to. And so apparently this guy ended up talking to a rabbi or somebody who helped to bind it all back together. And seal it. But there's a whole Jewish thing on how to do that.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like it comes from an older period before the Jews were, theistic. Yeah. Exactly. Kind of
So, okay. This one's kind of interesting. The Philip experiment was in 1972. So these people, there's a book about it. They were into doing seances.
Mm-hmm.
And as an experiment, they wanted to create with their thought forms an entity and to see if it would relate in the seance. And so they're all meditating, and a group created thought form of a being And then they started doing seances. And so this thought form started doing the same raps and other kind of stuff that they do in seances. It was behaving just like a ghost and a spirit.
Mm.
Now, I have not read this book. I don't even know where to get it. Oh, well, I'm sure I can find it. But, you know, I was thinking, well, what did you do with that spirit after the fact, after you created it? You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's a question, though, too. But here's another question, though. If you can create consciousness, and a consciousness is in everything all around us, and you're forming consciousness with your intention, maybe it is that is kind of as its own soul, even though it's this really brings up a lot of questions about the nature of consciousness, really. You know what I
it
mean?
does. And that is why whoops, where'd you go? I hit the wrong thing, Denise. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I wanted to open the thing up, but that's why I think that AI, in a way,
Right.
will have consciousness, because you've got all of these people pouring the same
True.
thought forms in. And so there are whole groups now that are, or even Deepak Chopra, or however you say that guy's name, but
Yeah.
like spiritual groups are just like pouring stuff in on these AI bots. And so, and then you've got the dark side, and you've got people trying to do other stuff in there. It just makes me wonder, if you could create something that is going to manifest in a seance, how is that going to manifest in technology that's wired through everything?
Yeah,
It's kind of disturbing. I mean, it could be good, but it could be very bad.
It really reminds me of the Bible thing with the
I
beast.
can tell Helen's like, I can't wait.
No, I just have this internal growing dread about it. Every time somebody says AI, I get the willies. And that's usually my clue that there's something truly wrong, bad about it. I felt the same way about Trump in 2015. Before, in the 1980s, when he was first talking about running, I just had this dread, you know, and that's what I feel every time somebody mentions AI. And it's let's, you know, I'll stipulate that I stink when it comes to working with technology, but it's not that. This is different. Yeah.
Right. And it's the intention of how. What were you going to say, Denise, about something about the Bible?
It reminds me of the Bible with the beast, you know.
Yes.
You know, the beast is like is like a very negative, obviously, kind of devil reference. But I remember, you know, and a lot of people I remember in the 70s or it was in the 80s, I think, when I got this pamphlet from, I don't know who it was. I can't remember, but it was like some Jewish, I think, mystical group who got my name through, because I ordered catalogs for like Rosicrucians and other weird stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I got on some mailing lists. I got a lot of weird stuff, and they sent me this thing, and it was like they did all this sort of research with the prophecies in the Bible and talking about how they correlated to things going on at the time. And one of the things they correlated to the beast was the IBM computer that was the mainframe that controlled all commerce, which had it has 0666 was its number. And it's the number that was encoded in all, and I don't know if it still is, but at the time it was encoded in every single barcode, because that was, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And, you know, it is a beast. It's a thinking, it's not a, you know, it's, how else would you describe it if you were 2000 years ago? How would you describe this thing? It would be like a beast, right? And then the thing is, so you know, when I first went on the internet the first time, and, you know, I remember feeling really creeped out by it. Like, I mean, I love technology, but I got on the internet. I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. It's going to bring about all kinds of weird shit is going to come out of this. I could feel the chaos coming out of it, and cold chaos is what it felt like. And everyone thought I was crazy, but I think it has brought a lot of chaos into the world. And AI to me is a whole leveling up to the next level of that. To me, it feels like this is a really big paradigm shift that is so big that it could completely blow apart everything that we know as the 2000 years of. It will destroy probably our economic systems. It will destroy, I mean, it's going to destroy people's sense of who they are and what meaning and everything. It's going to be, if we don't destroy ourselves before it kind of gets going, it would, that in itself will be a world changing kind of, very destructive, I think, in many ways.
Well, yeah. Ask yourself why. It's giving over all the power, all free will to something that has no soul, no emotion. That can't be good.
Well,
have you seen these glasses that Zuckerberg wants? And there was an article in The Hill. It's more of a but I like The Hill. It's, there's a part of me that's quite conservative too. And so there was an article in there about how they were warning about this stuff, because it's like you're going to be put into the AI like consciousness or whatever you want to call that, whether you like it or not. Because these people are going to buy these glasses, walk around, and even if they interact with you, it's like snap, your picture's being taken, your voice, everything about you, your behavior goes into the system. So it's not like you get a privacy policy or anything.
It's not like you get a choice. Right.
Yeah. So these and then people want that. So it's like, oh, okay, so you're wearing these glasses, and let's say I want to interview Bo for a job or something. I can, put these glasses on, and it'll tell me everything I want to know, everything about her, what her social media history has been, her, what she lives in, what she buys at the grocery store, the kind of media she consumes, and then have AI generate like this whole profile.
Wow.
And and so anyway, in The Hill, which is, like I said, it's a more conservative publication, they're worrying about this, and I'm thinking, and other people they talk about putting this interface in your brain and everything. I'm just thinking, I get so much spam just through my email.
Yeah, no, I would not want that.
Can you imagine having that much spam coming into your head, or wearing glasses to interpret things? And then what comes of your own, like,
that's horrible
to discern and interpret, because
that sounds, absolutely. That really sounds like the beast, right
That's
there.
the next logical step up from Facebook. People have their faces planted in their devices 24/7. It's already begun, in my opinion. I walked past the high school the other day here. It was lunchtime, and there were all these little clusters of high school students sitting around, talking, eating, except they weren't talking. They were 100% of them, 100% had the phone up and were fiddling with the phone in a circle of friends. I assume they're friends, peers anyway. Not one person was talking to another person. 100% of them on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bove, I unmuted you. Just pop in. If it echoes again, I'll mute you back.
Okay.
I think it's just whatever is going on here in the White
Yeah,
Mountain.
I don't think it's her.
I don't think that it's you. It's probably bouncing between the two of us, between whatever's going on up here. So, it's true, Helen. And and so then you wonder, okay, like you asked, why would these kids want to create tulpas, right? Well, maybe they want some kind of experience away from the phone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe they want something that feels more, it feels like more.
Yeah. Or just to feel again.
Yeah, right.
So, the question, can belief create ghosts? I personally think they can.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Mm-hmm.
This guy wrote this book, Demonic Reality, A Field Guide to the Other World. I think that was published in the early 90s. And he was studying this whole thing about repetitive ghost sightings. And that it seems to be true that I'm echoing. Okay, I'm going to mute you again, Bob. Sorry. I hate hearing my voice bounce back in my head. It's like I'm turning into a tulpa. But anyway, that was his thing, that these repeat places that people go to, it's group consciousness, group think that helps to sustain or maybe even create these entities. And let me see, let me go to the next. And then some of them, it's speculated, at least in this Reddit community, they say that some of these tulpas are starting to become hostile, and people think that they're ghosts. So if you have disturbed people creating this stuff, then of course.
So they're going to be disturbed tulpas, yeah.
So in science, they kind of look at this and, they say maybe it's through a disassociative or imaginative process. Of course, science says that tulpas don't exist.
Well, because they don't understand it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really understand it. They probably haven't.
They don't understand consciousness. So yeah, they were not going to understand this. Yeah.
But they say that it's not like a pathological, like dissociative identity disorder, which we all used to call multiple personalities. They don't think it's that.
Right.
Let's see. Oh yeah, this is an interesting thing too. This guy really studied poltergeist type of thing, and it went into kind of like what you were explaining, Denise, how that kind of energy just like creates poltergeists, and kind of goes a little bit into the tulpa theory as well.
Right.
So I think that was the end. So so what we perceive as ghosts may not be from the dead. It just could be what we think. And I think that's why it's so important to watch what we read or listen, who we're going to listen to or any of that kind of stuff.
I agree.
Because mass media is creating, I think, a huge tulpa of madness.
Yeah. There's this proliferation on television, I've noticed. I don't have regular channels, but regular TV stations, but
we don't either. We're too remote.
Netflix or whatever. There's a real proliferation of shows that have to do with mind control from external sources like viruses or fungi or whatever, and they make people no longer human. They die and they reanimate, and they're
this is a metaphor for fascism always.
It's
it
really
reappears
kind of like that whole thing coming through that radio. It's saying the same thing.
So much violence is associated with it. There's a show now that everyone was talking about, and I turned it on and I got through the first 5 minutes of it because it was just one gruesome death after another.
Yeah.
What's that? Just read the newspaper about Ukraine,
Right. Yeah, well, the violence is really like pornography at this point. It's so pervasive, and it's so people just
They're hungry for it. Oh.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah. I'm not sure why.
Why? I was just going to say why. Why?
Maybe because they're angry and they don't have any way to act out themselves. So they like seeing someone else act out their anger.
Empowered. Yeah.
They feel empowered. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I kind of asked before too is, does having a belief in an afterlife contribute to that? Because, these kids or, some people, I don't think they realize the finality of what a violence, if you kill somebody, what that is.
Right. That's true. Right.
If it's just, we're here cycling in and then we learn and grow and cycle back out and we keep living, it kind of takes away the appreciation of the here and now.
I think it's a lack of empathy. I don't think they can relate to when you kill somebody off, you're not just ending one life and everything that could have a potential in that life, but you're damaging all the people associated with that person. I think they lack that empathy, that insight.
This is going to sound like some old conservative, but I honestly think that it would do a lot of good, even if it's for summer, for young people to work on a farm and to see how food grows, how animals are killed and butchered.
Yeah.
And to get a whole appreciation of where everything comes, because I think part of what's contributing to all of this is the immediacy or immediate gratification for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, people don't realize what goes into growing food. Even if
Sure
it's
they
a
don't.
little garden
Food
in the back.
grows. Denise, were you telling me, I had a conversation with somebody just recently talking about a group of teenagers not understanding that like carrots grow in the ground.
No, I didn't. No, it wasn't me.
It's just unreal.
Or that milk comes from cows, and that cows have
Right.
to be fed and cared for. And it's like, I think, because, and this is the danger with the internet also, and I'm seeing this like in law and all of this type of thing, is that all of these documents are being scanned and put online.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't keep the paper copies anymore, and it's really cumbersome. I mean, my office just looks horrible. I've got so much paper and boxes and just stuff in there. But I tell you
Right.
what, if the cloud goes down, and I do think a cyber attack is on its way,
Sure.
then where are people going to get their information if everything is supposed to come through their phone or the internet?
Right.
It's going to be paper books. It's going to be, to
Right.
even prove your legal rights. Do you have a copy of your deed to your house? A lot of people
Right.
don't.
Right.
Or worse. This is something I think about all the time because I love history and primary source materials. There are going to be no written letters and diaries and written autobiographies and physical material records of what has happened in our time. In 200 years, people are going to look back. What are they going to do? Access the cloud? I mean,
Yeah, right. They're not going to. I can't even access my old computer, like what was on there.
Right.
I've
Let
lost-
alone the cloud.
Yeah.
And this is, I have to say, it's one thing I really admire about the Mormons is that they keep these wonderful diaries. So even in like water rights, you have to first in time, first in right. Man, they talked about everything they farmed, what they grew, how much water, and that stuff is invaluable. It's like, 100 and some years old, and we can prove, yeah, we were using that water. And so because of that, I journal myself and keep a diary, and it's in books, not on the internet where somebody can hack it and feed it into an AI somewhere.
Listen, the Stoics advocated that. It goes back thousands of years that there is some sort of mental mind to hand process that occurs when you actually sit down and write your thoughts out or write your intentions or your hopes or talk about your flaws and your interactions with people. It actually processes all of that on a completely different level.
Yeah. I already got so many journals. It's psychotic. It's not good. I have way too many pieces of paper and journals.
Start calling you
another problem. Having too much of that. Yeah. But yeah. I agree.
And it's like, it's so exciting to get like a handwritten letter in the mail. I mean, it's like only my older friends send it now. But it's like, I love getting those.
It's like a prize.
It is like real
I
letters.
write to my grandchildren,
Little,
and I write to them, and they write back.
That's cute. That's
I sent you
sweet.
that copy of that book my granddaughter made.
Yeah, sweet.
Okay, you know what part of that blew my mind was the technological part. They did that themselves.
You mean you sent me a PDF of it? Because you didn't literally send it to me. You're talking about like on the internet, right?
I connected you to the link that she
Yeah,
sent
that's
me.
right.
Oh,
Okay.
scanned
I,
it.
was like,
And it's
I didn't get the actual book. So it's
No.
like, okay.
when I was a kid, we would make books, what we considered books, and it was a 3-hole punch and yarn tying them together,
Yeah.
and you used pastels and drew a cover. This is all fancy and computerized,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just incredible, And they're little. I don't know how they do that.
Well, they're used to technology. They grew up with it. Yeah.
This is true.
All the
but
kids
when
are good at it. Yeah.
What was that?
That's my daughter coughing.
Oh,
I thought you had another burp coming through.
No.
we had a
No.
tulpa.
That's my daughter coughing. Yeah. She's very loud tonight. She is really in a mood. She is in a mood. Yeah.
My doll Robert in the corner over there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was all I had for our consciousness discussion tonight. You guys have any thoughts on it?
I have to tell you that Robert doll is very creepy because while we were talking about it, I split my screen and I pulled it up. I'm looking at images and I'm going, holy crap, what the hell is this? And the dates, 1906, and the reality of this story, I can't even
It is super creepy. It's super creepy looking doll too.
Now,
So
is this the doll
creepy.
that's in the museum that people
Yes.
are not? Okay, I've
Yes.
heard about it.
It's super
Hey,
creepy.
Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it is super freaking creepy looking. He's a really weird, and he looks almost like he's had pins stuck in him too, like a voodoo doll.
Yeah, I never heard of that, and I never heard of what was it? I want to say Buna or
Oh, Bennu the Asteroid. That's like new news. Yeah.
Yes. That
But,
was interesting too.
Who's the other doll? Annabelle or something like that?
Annabelle,
Was that
yeah.
where, who were those two people that
That's
man and wife?
yes.
Ed and Lorraine. What were they?
Oh my God, those two.
Yeah, Ed and Lorraine
Yeah.
with the Warrens.
Warren.
Yeah.
What do you think about them? Because they're coming up on our Saturday show. Tell me, Helen. I have
Well,
heard mixed
I have an
reviews.
opinion without any like substantial facts to back it up. So I'll tell you what I think. The gut feeling I get about them is there's some legitimacy in a lot of what they do, but they also monetize it, cashed in on it.
Yeah, I think also they're very myopic as well. And everything's demonically possessed because he considers himself to be a demonic expert. Like he considers himself to be a whatever. And I think they're very hyper Christian and they have a very hyper Christian way of looking at everything. And I think that it reminds me a little bit of this series I saw a while back. It was Amish hauntings. And
I saw that too. Yes.
It's so great. Almost every single one of them turns out it was the electricity because they're not supposed to have electricity. It's the devil. And then they pull the electricity out and the haunting goes away. And that kind of proves your point of that whole self-created guilt that they have for putting the electricity in their house. And then they have these weird occurrences and they pull it out and it's gone. So, but it's, it's so much in their paradigm. It's like they create this craziness and you know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of the Warrens. Also, I think there's a lot of exaggeration going on.
And monetizing. You know that they don't do that work for free. They're not social workers.
No, and they wrote lots of books that made lots of money.
Yes,
and
they
really, really amped up the stories and made them a lot more dramatic.
Saying about 12-year-olds driving, I maintain that we need to be humble about our inability to understand this stuff and rein it back in and start working from a foundation and building a foundation of spiritual understanding. All this stuff is all very interesting and fascinating and titillating, but it doesn't serve us anything in our spiritual evolution whatsoever. I mean, I was into, when I was 10, we were making witch hexes and stuff. I think everybody does that at some point.
Not really.
No, I think I would be too scared to.
I do.
Not everybody.
What was my witch name? Was Witch Hazel Belladonna or something?
Right.
Though, but I think they're more. I personally think they are important for your spiritual growth because
I do.
It makes, like when I was living in that haunted house, it made me learn what my boundaries are and that you can say no to this kind of crap. And it empowers
I think it is.
you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
Right. And then the other thing is that it opens your mind to other possibilities of what things are and like thinking, what is consciousness? Where did life come from?
Yeah.
Because, even these tulpas, okay, if they're conscious, is that a form of life? Does life have to be biological?
I don't know. And that's a question that I wonder because, one could say that if we are imbued, if we are co-creators in the universe If we have consciousness and our consciousness is, we shift it towards something and we created something, then maybe we are little mini creators creating some other kind of consciousness. It may not be the same as if God or the creator or whatever it is created us, but it is some form of consciousness that had, and maybe it's just a lower form. Maybe it'll evolve. Maybe it'll change. We don't know. I mean, we really don't know. We don't know our power. We don't know.
Well, that would be my point. We don't know what we're doing.
We don't know. We don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, this is one of the things too, that, tulpas kind of remind me a little bit about voodoo and puppets, and also, and that's also a Wiccan thing, magic you do with, what Wicca. It's a really old animistic kind of thing. It goes back to, like, all shamanic traditions have that kind of a thing built into them. And it's usually used if somebody's good intentions to try to help somebody. Sometimes people use it for evil intention to try to hurt somebody. Yeah, I mean, whether we understand it or not, some people can really do it really quite well. And I do think it can be, from my own experiences, magic does work, but it is dangerous though, if you don't know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
I think intention behind it, I think if it's intended to generate fear or pain, it's entirely
ricochets back. From my experience, like, all the people I know that dabbled in the dark side, the payment for your dabbling in the dark side is you lose your mind. That's what happens eventually. Something happens and you lose your mind. You go crazy because it's the energy coming blowing back at you. So, and when I left this coven that I was in, I mean, I didn't think anything of it, but my friend who I got to leave with me because there's something wrong there. She was like, they're doing black magic on us. She knew because her sister was actually in the coven as well. And I do think there was something going on. I mean, I'm like, I don't care is what I said. They don't have any power over me. I don't give a shit, do whatever you want. You can't touch me. But there were incidences where strange things did happen. And, like, looking back on it, there are a couple things I'm like, that seems like it was some kind of a weird spell thing that happened. And it happened to my friend too, but it broke. It wasn't power, I felt like they don't have the power to control me, and it kind of, whatever. But I have heard lots of stories being in this field for a long time that are really not that simple, like where people who are really talented at doing bad or good things, especially bad things, really be disruptive to other people's lives. And it's really,
well, even what was the CIA thing? It escapes my mind right now, where they were
MK Ultra.
No, it may have been the remote viewing or something.
Project Aquarius.
And yeah, that's what it was. And I was reading some of the stuff, and to me, it was like just nonsense that some of these people were saying after a while. And but there was a problem where people were going mad, like you said, just kind of
they were going crazy. Really? Wow.
Yes, maybe that's our next show. I'll pull some of those documents I was reading, and it was just like, oh my God,
I know somebody who was at the beginning of the American remote viewing experiment in the military with Ingo Swann.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan Schwartz. And he talks about it quite openly. I mean, he helped to create the concept, and he used remote viewing to find lost archaeological sites and objects, and it works. I'll never forget the one story of the remote viewer who said, well, I see a giant submarine up on blocks in the middle of a wheat field, and they, the military people told him, okay, enough out of you, you're nuts, that's no such thing. When the Soviet Union fell apart, they found secret records where they were building a gigantic nuclear submarine in a wheat field in Ukraine, and it was a real thing. So I don't know, that the theory is that we live in a soup, if you want to call it that. It makes it easy to understand. A soup of potential energy, past, present, and future. That, you know, he calls it the information in the field. That's how the scientists would look at it. The ancients called it the ether. Call it what you want. Every potential is there. And you're not your body. You're an energy field. You can tune into it.
Yeah, but it's you know, that's why the military got rid of. I just want to say this in opposition, not to what you're saying, but to what people's understanding of remote viewing is, because remote viewing is a protocol that is very monotonous,
right?
And it's also not everybody is good at it, and that was why the military decided to can it. Is because there was very few operational things that came out of it. There was very few things that actually were really helpful. And they found that certain people were really good at it, really like Ingo Swann, or it happened to be, you know, psychic or whatever, and they could do it really well. And then they found other people were just garbage at it and got nothing out of it. It's the same thing with psychic ability. So these people were just probably naturally psychic and learned these protocols, and it helped them. But the idea behind it's a different kind of technique, because it's basically using the body to, like, and the unconscious to like figure stuff out. So it's very routinized and very monotonous. And there's
a whole protocol to it, and they take it very seriously. There's sort of controls to it so that they can.
Yeah, I know. I've taught remote viewing, actually. I've done it myself. Yeah. So I know what remote viewing is. Yeah, it's not really that interesting. It's actually so much easier just to go into meditation and find information out than it is to do all this shit where you get a coordinate, and you know you basically I mean, I did it a long time ago, then I stopped, and then people were asking me about it, and then I kind of brushed back up on it, and I did some practicing, and like then I started teaching it. And it's basically, you know, so I'll come up with a picture on my phone, you know, and then I would give it a bunch of numbers. Then I give it to you guys. I don't tell you anything about it. I just give you the numbers. Then you make like a squiggly line on your paper, and you keep filling into your squiggly line, and you feel what you feel. There's a protocol. Is it like hard, or, you know, there's all these things you ask yourself. Is this hard or soft or whatever? I can't remember. It's been a while since I did it again. You know, is this cold or wet or whatever? And you come up with all these adjectives, and you keep doing that and mining it and mining it and mining it until more and more information starts to flow. And it can be really like wild and detailed. And then by the end, people get these, like, they often get stuff that looks, but again, it's not a given that everybody can do it. You know?
And so the numbers, you just make them out of whole cloth, or they legitimate?
Yeah, you just make them up.
They're not legitimate longitude and latitude. You just make them
No,
up.
they started with longitude and latitude, but then they felt like that was giving too much information by doing that. So they just gave random numbers.
Now, were there other programs going on through the government too? Because
yes,
when I was working in Dallas at this big law firm, there was this really nice lady in that, you know, she was quite a bit older than me at the time. And no, I'm the old one. I
know. She like 35.
And but anyway, she was just really wonderful to talk with. And she told me that after JFK was assassinated, before that happened, she was in the hospital. She had a bad child birth, whatever, kind of like you, Denise. And she was just like, and after that, it was like all of a sudden she started having like this extreme psychic ability. And she was like telling everybody at the hospital all about what was going to happen, that, you know, all of it. And she said that she had to work for the government. I mean, she was made to work for them for like a year or something. And like tuning in on her thing was just like had the like safety of presidents and stuff. I guess that they thought that was her specialty.
What period of time was that?
And so this would have to have been in the 1960s. So that's why I'm wondering, you know, what
it might have been the precursor to the program too. But like after they got rid of that Aquarius project or whatever, and they got rid of remote viewing, I started like, and it was right around the Gulf War when I was working on the psychic line, and I started getting calls from the government. I think I told you this story before. Maybe, I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe
So
hasn't heard it. Neither has our audience. So,
Oh, yeah.
well, I just started getting all these calls with like a beeping on it, ding, ding, you know, like, and I'd be like, is this being recorded? Yes. Are you working for the government? Yes. So they told me the truth when I'd asked them. I thought it was really weird. And I kept getting a recurrence of these calls. Other people got them and then they stopped and then I got them. And then shortly thereafter, I was kind of like, I don't even know how it exactly happened, but I was kind of streamed into this place that was working for this guy who had been in naval intelligence. And that was a very weird experience. That was strange. And then I was streamed into this other place with only a few people who we had this weird thing where we never got any calls and we did all these experiments and we had something above us and we were being watched and it was very weird. And then I quit and then the other people went to the next day to go to work and it was gone. The place was gone.
Denise,
Note on the door.
my job was McDonald's. You had such an interest.
I mean, I thought it was really weird. And I'm like, because the whole time I kept saying, is this some kind of what? And the guy kept trying to get me to go to Las Vegas. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why don't you
and
tell
there's
us?
a lot of monitoring that people don't even realize. Now, when the internet really started taking off in the 90s.
Yes, it was in the 90s
okay.
when this happened. Mm-hmm.
So I'm of the mind that I use my own servers, whatever, and will host websites on my own stuff, with my own people that watch the safety of the server. And so you know what's going on and who's attacking you, and you have records that you wouldn't normally get through third-party platforms. And so I had helped some psychics put up some websites and got them booked and things like that, you know, I had such a weird, like, people that I was doing stuff for, like farmers and psychics and artists. And it was just like, you know, because the internet was just taking off. I mean, I remember this one real estate company and this old guy was like, how much RAM will it have? And I'm like, oh, what? It's on my server. But anyway, you could see that the military was constantly through all, especially the psychic websites, their bots were checking it. Yeah, were constantly scouring this stuff. This was in the 90s, and it lasted like probably. And so this psychic woman that I knew that was pretty good and started going a little nutty. I told her, I said, you know, you're being monitored, and she was like, no, I'm not. And I said, yes, you are. Let me show you the logs. There's nothing like having something proof.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And I'd say probably like the mid 90s, 96, somewhere around there, they no longer had that identifier, you know, in the server log that you could see where it was accessing. But even, you know, like my water, all that kind of stuff, it's run on, I've got 2 servers in 2 different states. And so I know what's going on and who's looking at stuff and who's trying to, and that's why I say there's a cyber attack coming. I'm not saying that out of my just making it up. There's one coming.
Right. Oh, I think you're right. I can feel it coming. I've already had some.
How does that manifest in our daily lives? How are we going to experience that?
Because shut down.
Think about, all right. I had this dream that was so intense one time, and I saw a taste of it out here. In the dream, it was like I went down to our bank. We've got the nicest bankers in this little tiny town. It's a small bank. Everybody knows each other. Just sweetest people ever. And so, but I went in to cash a check and they said, we'd love to be able to cash your check, but we can't because everything is down. Because right now, all of your like money things to the bank or whatever you do, it goes through this federal system. And so they could not cash in this dream. They could not cash checks because the internet was down. All right, think about that. And then what happened maybe a year after that dream, I think it's going to be much worse than that dream I had. For some reason out here, we have like the fiber optic lines. It's like Verizon, which is their cell phone. And then Frontier, which is the only provider that we have. We do not have cable TV or anything. We're remote. Anyway, somebody dug that up. well, the first time they just shot it. They knew where it was out in the middle of the high desert. Then about a year and a half goes by, and they literally dug down to where it was buried and shot it again. Well, what happens is
With
that
a
all
gun?
the internet goes
Shot
down.
it. Shot
With
it.
a gun.
Shot it so that you have no communication. So guess what happens? The ATM doesn't work. Your gas pumps don't work.
Right.
You can't make
Shuts down the whole
911
grid.
calls. The State Corporation Commission finally got involved. I mean, because usually it's like, oh, they're out there in remote areas. Who cares? They're rural. Let them suffer. We don't care.
Right.
Until a complaint came in the second time because it shut everything down and somebody died because they couldn't call 911. Had a heart
Wow.
attack.
Wow.
That's how it will affect you, and so many things now. And it just, even like my cell phones and things, it's like AI is now embedded in everything, whether you like it or not.
That's
And it
right.
was
Yes.
turning my Bluetooth on and off. I didn't know when I'm in a conference trying to have a meeting. And it
Really?
kept
Why was it doing
shutting
that?
off. It was shutting off my screen and trying to direct it through my cell phone. And it was
Okay.
turning Bluetooth on. Even though I had it off, it kept turning it back on again.
How
Wow.
weird.
Just like we had that show the other time where
Creepy.
it turned on all my computers, right? And
I
my
remember
sound,
that.
and you guys heard all that sound. And I go to the office, it's like, well, everything was turned on in StreamYard, plugged into StreamYard.
That's
what
really
I worry
weird.
about is
So-
people being at loose ends, people not knowing what to do with themselves when they no longer have that 24/7 input from
Exactly.
screens.
There will be madness.
People don't know how to entertain themselves. They have no inner resources. So what if you can't call 911? If you're sitting around and you don't know what to do with yourself because you have no interests and no hobbies and no distractions, what kind of trouble are people going to get into?
They're going to get into a lot of
Exactly.
trouble.
And that's where community is such a good thing, and I'm very
Yeah.
blessed to live in an area where the people here are so wonderful. If there's a problem, everyone is there, they call it the town of friendly neighbors. I call them gossipy neighbors, but you know what? Everybody's out there to help you,
Right,
if something
right.
happens. And there's and people have interests and they do things. And
Right.
so if everything shuts down, and I know we went through it for like 2 weeks when the first time they knocked all of that down.
When did that
And so
happen,
you're
Deborah?
this,
How long ago was that?
maybe 10 years ago, somewhere.
Wow. It's a long time
And
ago.
I think it happened in New Hampshire or somewhere too. And they reported that because it was a bigger area. But boy, we were bartering and everything because nothing works unless you
That's
have
so
cash
weird.
on you. There was like one little ATM that worked in town because it wasn't connected to the internet. It was connected to an old rotary phone.
Wow.
And you would dial in and that one would work. So I
Wow.
keep my landlines around too for that.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, so many different things are affected by it and everything,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, whether they have these, so in a way, I think
But
it
don't
could
you
be a
think-
blessing in disguise because then the AI isn't connected to everything and it'll boot it out of the system.
Maybe. Yeah.
I kind of live in a semi-rural area. I haven't driven my car in 5 years. I just walk. It's that everything is within walking distance, and really, I feel somewhat disconnected. Although how ironic, with the YouTube channel. But should everything go out tomorrow, other than utility services? I really like hot water. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We even have a wood stove.
Yep.
We're ready, bring it on. What the heck? But I'm more concerned about the reaction of younger people who will be lost.
Well, they'll figure it out, if they have to. I mean, they'll adapt. They're also really adaptable. I mean, what do you think about the thing that just happened in Europe? That seemed like a very clear, some kind of an attack, and almost like a precursor.
Planes and everything.
Yeah, that really seemed like some kind of run through for something.
I read something interesting about that. They were speculating that really it's easy to jump to conclusions that it was intentional, but the more sophisticated a system becomes, the more narrow the margin of error. And that is such a tightly connected system that if one small thing goes wrong, it's a domino effect. And you can absolutely predict and expect this kind of thing to happen more and more as the system becomes more and more intricate.
Yeah, but you also wonder if that's kind of bullshit cover up kind of stuff
Well, I
too.
don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying because there's so many weird things that have been happening the last 10 years, like what you're talking about, Deborah. There's a massive AT&T outage, and then they're like, oh, it was just somebody put the wrong button. And I don't buy it. I think they're trying to hide a lot of the attacks from people because what that just makes them look weak. There's no reason to tell us. And what are they going to do about it? You know what I mean?
Well,
Are they going to go to war with, Russia over attacking us? No, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like they just shoot themselves in the foot if they tell us. So they're not going to tell us. And I think even if we had a massive attack, in fact, there was a movie that the Obamas
Yes,
produced.
it was very good.
It was really
on
good.
Netflix,
And it's very much like about something like this happening. It's basically, what the hell is the name of it, Deborah? I can't remember right now.
I can't remember either.
Was it a documentary or was
No,
it?
it was a really good
movie.
The Obamas, they produce it or something.
Yeah, they produced it. It's sort of like the thing that they're most worried about happening.
Predictive programming, right?
And you bring that up. You know how things like float into your consciousness or things.
Yeah.
Of all things, the meme I kept seeing was from that movie. Remember where all the Teslas kind of in the movie kind of went nuts? They were all like jammed. Well, that was like all over my blue sky today. I went on. It was like one after another. And I was thinking, what was that movie? I know it was a really good movie, and I couldn't remember. Now you bring this up.
Yeah.
Something's coming because things usually happen if we're talking about it on this show.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, that means we wouldn't be able to talk, correct?
Yeah, it'll come
Leave
back.
the World Behind. It's called Leave the World Behind.
That's what it is. It's excellent.
So is it like on Netflix or something?
It's on Netflix, yeah.
Okay.
And it's about I don't want to give everything away, but basically there's this massive cyber attack is what it is. And it's basically a cover for an invasion.
Don't give it away.
But they don't go through the whole thing of that. But you don't know what's going on, right? And so that's the thing. People don't know what to believe. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's safe and what's not safe. They think they do one thing, and then there's like the Teslas, they can't get out of the area. And there's just all these things that we take for granted that kind of end up becoming like tools of destruction. And it's really quite interesting movie, I thought.
Yeah,
it was a good movie.
you'll enjoy it. I don't know if you have Netflix, but I would highly recommend it. Have
Yeah,
you
you
seen
should
it,
see it. Yeah, it's good.
Have you seen
No, I
it?
want to watch it. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah, I'm going to watch
Yeah,
it.
watch it. It's a good movie, and also has some stuff about racism and stuff like that too in it. So it's quite good. It's got a lot of layers to it. It's a good movie.
We're almost at
the poor
almost at we're almost at 2 hours, I think, right? Or is it 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe next time, Deborah, we could talk about the poor beleaguered South Afrikaners who are
yes.
suffering
the
genocide
sadness.
and suffering so badly.
Oh, poor them. I know. And then they're kicking out people. I heard the story about there was just a Danish man who is being kicked, who's taken by ICE because of one piece of paper that he was missing from his thing, and they sent him away without letting him talk to us and didn't tell him they were going to come pick him up.
Did he go back to Denmark?
I don't know where he went. I think he did not. I think he was sent to one of those. I don't know. I don't know yet.
The Cato report that they did a Cato Institute came out yesterday. Where 50 of these people that have been sent to San Salvador, are completely legally
innocent,
totally 100% interest. What am I thinking? Innocent.
Innocent.
And then there's another batch of them that they're innocent too, but they may have had like
a traffic ticket,
traffic stop, or some little kind of thing.
Right.
The majority of these people have not done anything wrong.
No,
and then
that's right.
Today,
but even if they have,
the news coming out today, I don't know if it was in Tennessee or Denver or where it was, but what they were doing, there were people coming in for their court hearing. And ICE, all the prosecutors for the federal government said, oh, we're just dropping this case. We're not going to. And then, so here they are at court, and then ICE just took them off. And so the immigration attorneys are saying, you know, they used to say the safest place is in the courthouse, you know.
Right.
Now,
And these are people that are legally applying.
Here.
They've done nothing wrong.
Yes,
they
they've done nothing wrong.
Trying to go
No, but they're also talking about deporting American citizens too. So, so
exactly.
you know, they don't
That
care.
scares the shit out of me.
I know, isn't it scary? That's what it's supposed to do, is scare the shit out of you.
But
So you
according
don't
to
do
the
it, so you don't
Constitution,
say anything. So you
it
don't
doesn't
do well.
matter if you're a citizen or not. If
Yeah.
you're a human being based on natural law, you have
Not natural law, but American law.
inalienable rights,
Yeah.
which means you're born with these rights, and one of them is due process. It's the
Well,
right
that's an American, it's in the Constitution. It's not a natural law. It's a constitutional law.
No, I've been
Yeah.
listening to this thing about it. I've been listening to these analysts talking about it, and what they're saying is this is all based on the belief system of the Enlightenment, and it is based on that we're born with these rights. Nobody can take it away or give them.
But it's not. That's an ideology, though. It doesn't make it natural. Yeah,
That's
but it is what our country is based on, and it is we are supposed to have these rights. There's not there. You know, everybody. It doesn't matter. You could be a murderer. You could be the Menendez brothers, but you have your right to trial. You know what I mean?
Citizen or not.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the conundrum, though, when we're talking about consciousness. If people, just a little group of people, are so it can concentrate their thoughts
Yes.
into creating some kind of entity that starts doing things in seances, or a
right.
little boy and his nanny can make a doll like alive.
Come to life, right?
What is this about us that has allowed this situation to happen? You know, I mean, did we create this?
Yes, we did create it. I think I have a number of theories about metaphysically why this happened, but we'll have to save them for next. We should talk about it maybe next time.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think it ties into the consciousness.
It does.
So I want to thank you. First of all, thank you to our people that were in the chat and are here listening, and to wonderful people who showed up for the studio here. Helen, good to see you.
Wow,
good to see you, Bove and Denise. Always lovely.
Yeah, it's always fun.
This is really fun. So
it is fun.
And before we close off, one more thing. The links for that radio that's in the show description, take everything with a grain of salt. I do not want to start a conspiracy theory, but it's worth thinking about. Right.
Yeah.
All right, good people. Well, we will talk later.
Okay, sounds good. Love you guys. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. We love hearing your stories, so tell your friends so they can join the party. For show notes and our forum of high strangeness, visit CosmicFold.com. Remember, Cosmic Fold airs live on Wednesday and Saturday nights, so be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to know when we're on air. Thanks again and have a great evening.